Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're having a great day. Today I'm going to step out into our glorious wheat field, which is still a little bit of a work in progress, but I wanted to do a bit of building today before we go any further with it. Up there on the hill, right by that cluster of giant trees, we're going to be taking the trees down. We are going to be building a windmill. But to start off this episode, I thought I would spend a little bit of time down in the mines, and as you can see here, I've still got my entrance to the rest of the caves down there. I will briefly show you what I did over here in this direction because I've come up with a kind of impromptu way of propping up the entrance to our mine over here. As you can see, this now has a bit of an archway to it with a crafting table I can easily access even though it's up in the sky there. Fun fact, the crafting table has a bottom texture which is exactly the same as some oak planks, so you can actually conceal a crafting table in oak and you'd never know it was there until you saw the sides of it like so. Anyway, this is all set up. There's nothing much decorative inside the mine itself, but I thought we would use that as a kind of springboard for a project in the near future. So keep an eye out for that, but in the meantime, we're going to head down the little branch mine area down by the farmstead over here, and I'm going to do a bit more strip mining because we will need some cobblestone for the windmill project, and it's about to get dark, so I figured why not spend a little bit of time underground and come back up when it's light and we have a few more resources. So I'm going to cut away while we do that. You guys know what branch mining is. You've seen this before. We might have a few more resources, a few more diamonds as well, but the main thing I'm looking for is a whole lot of stone. Alright, I am back from the strip mine and ready to get on with today's progress, but I sort of want to shear some sheep first so we can add to our collection of white wool. You'll notice I've re-dyed all of these sheep back to white, and the main reason for that is because I want the sails of the windmill we're going to be building today to be white. I think there is one sheep in here who's actually still red, unless I managed to get him as well, but who knows? They all look the same now, so it's a mystery. All right, let's get on with it. Let's put the wool in here. There we go. That should fit nicely with that. And as you can see, I got a bunch of cobblestone, some andesite, some spruce logs, and some oak logs. I think that should be enough for the build we're going to do today, but it's possible that we might need a little bit more of the wood. We'll get plenty of oak from cutting down all of those trees, though, so we may as well. While I've got the shears on me, actually, I wanted to do a couple more additions to this wheat field. I wanted to put a couple of scarecrows in, mainly so we can do something about the lighting, because right now, the torches in here are quite well concealed, but there are some more immersive ways that we could do something about the lighting in the field, so I figured we may as well do that. Now, I'm going to come back up here to the pumpkin patch that has been growing, and sooner or later, I will actually have to start growing pumpkins myself as a crop, because goodness knows the supply of pumpkins up here is running out. But we're going to trim a few of these. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to take these guys with us. We'll take the axe to all of them and we'll bring them back down. And it looks like there are still a few left up there, so we always know where those are, and we've got plenty of pumpkin seeds should we need to regrow any of the pumpkins. That'll be fine, but we'll do that in a future episode because I'm not sure if pumpkins are really going to fit in with the wheat field we've built here. And yeah, we'll expand the wheat field a little bit more as we go, but you guys know what the deal is with the wheat field now, so I'm not going to do that on camera so much. Now, the thing about carved pumpkins is that they can be turned into jack-o'-lanterns by putting them in a crafting interface with a torch below them like so. Note that this is a shaped crafting recipe, which is a concept I haven't really introduced in the series before. Basically, what it means is that they have to be built a certain way in the crafting interface. You can't make a jack-o'-lantern by putting a torch above a carved pumpkin, even though these are the only two items that are needed for the recipe. Now, there are some shaped crafting recipes and some shapeless crafting recipes, which means you can build them any old way and they always turn out the same. The only way you can really tell if something is a shaped crafting recipe or not is by trial and error, or by consulting the Minecraft wiki, or occasionally by using the recipe book here to figure out what the recipe is. But yeah, most of them will be, for example, like if you do the same thing with a torch, you can't make a torch by using a stick and coal that way around. You do it that way around, you see? So it kind of helps to know what some of these things are, especially if there are recipes which use those items but in a different formation to make something completely different. Now, anyway, on to what I was going to do, because these jack-o'-lanterns will actually emit more light than the average torch. In fact, if we just put one down on the block there, that is actually producing one more light than a torch in all directions. So that's a slightly more effective way of lighting up the area. But I figured we would turn these into a more immersive detail, and we're going to make little scarecrows out of them using an oak fence, a hay bale on top of that for the body, and then maybe a jack-o'-lantern on top of there like so, as long as I can hop up to a place where I can place this block without having to worry about trampling any crops. And I think I might even put some oak fences either side on the hay bale like so. Oh, I've gone and done it anyway. There we go. Now, there are a few different ways we can decorate this guy and make him look a little bit more snazzy. For a start, I'm going to give him a hat using a stone slab on top of here and carpets around the outside. Now, carpets have to be placed on top of something, which can just be any kind of transparent block. They can be placed on a torch. We've placed them on fences before to allow you to jump over them, but they can't just be placed in midair. I'm right-clicking right now, and it won't let me place them. So instead, what we're going to do is add string on the 4 faces of the pumpkin, and string will actually act as some sort of block to let the carpet know there is something underneath it, and at that point we'll be able to place carpets over the top like so. Let me give you a quick example there. There we go. You can see that it actually looks like a backwards baseball hat almost, that kind of thing. But yeah, we'll put carpet on all 4 sides. There we go. Now he's got a nice sturdy hat to keep the sun off his eyes while he's out here in the field. We're not going to do that with all of them, but it's a fun little trick that you can use. Maybe a birch slab and some yellow carpet or something like that might have a similar effect. It depends what you can get slabs of, really. But I think I will probably replace some of the other torches we have out here in the field. Now, normally hostile mobs will not spawn on farmland like this, so you don't have to worry too much about zombies or creepers or anything spawning in your wheat field. However, where you've got patches of these hay bales like so, you might want to put a torch behind some of them so they're nice and discreet, but so that they keep the place lit up, because otherwise hay bales count as solid blocks that mob can spawn on, and you will actually find that some monsters start to spawn out here in the field, which you don't really want, especially if you're coming back here late at night. Now, there's another torch here, which we can replace with another scarecrow, and if you really wanted to go the whole hog, you could probably put some coarse dirt underneath there so it was less in tune with the farmland, so it didn't blend in quite as much. Now I'm going to try crouching and jumping like so. There we go. Didn't trample the crops that time. Good work. And we'll put the fences on either side like that. I think that guy's good. And then we'll put another one further up here as well. Now, if you wanted to, you could probably put some banners on the edges of these so that they have clothes that kind of flap in the wind or something like that. You could put banners on the hay bale blocks. And I think we'll do that a little bit later, but I'm not going to worry about it right now because I need to preserve all of that wool for the windmill. But speaking of the windmill, I think it is time we got started up here. Now let me hop up to the top of this, and we are probably going to do a little bit of terraforming later on just to close up some of the gaps in this hill, because ideally you wouldn't want to be building something as big and as heavy as a windmill on something that could potentially cave in. And of course this is Minecraft, so it's not actually going to cave in, but I think for the purposes of immersion and for the purposes of like making this world look a little bit more realistic, it's actually going to be nicer to have a full hill underneath here. We don't need to fill the blocks in, we just need to kind of fill in these gaps around the outside where it looks like there are holes through to a hollow cave underneath. And there's actually quite a lot of that on top here as well, so we might even need to lay down a few dirt blocks to clean up this area a little bit and make sure that it's okay to build on. Now that we've been to the end and we have access to a ton of endermen anytime we want them, I'm actually going to use some ender pearls to get around. The first trick I want to show you guys is my favorite way of taking down these giant oak trees when they appear, because it's a real pain getting rid of them just from the ground up. You have to chop down the tree and then pillar up to get rid of the rest of it. But what I like to do is get a decent high vantage point on them, toss an ender pearl into the upper branches, bring some shears or something with you, glitch into a block a little bit because of the ender pearl, and we can take it down from the top down. So just start off shearing off some of the leaves in the canopy so you can find yourself the central trunk and dig downwards from there, making sure to take out any smaller branches on the way, because these large oak trees like to hide them all over the place. And there's nothing worse than thinking you've taken down an entire large oak tree and then finding that one little patch of leaves isn't disappearing because you haven't gotten rid of one single oak log that's just being stubborn and hiding out in the branches. So make sure you get as many of those as you can on the way down, especially these ones that stick out super far to one side. And then you can always use another ender pearl to get up to the next tree and repeat the same process. And I'm not going to clear absolutely every tree from this section here because we only really need enough space to build the windmill I have in mind, and it's not all that large. It only really takes up about 13 or 14 blocks in diameter, so it's not that expansive of a build. It's going to look really nice up here on this hilltop though. I think this is an ideal location for it. So I'm just going to start closing off some of these open sections where it goes into the caves around here. I don't think we'll be spending a huge amount of time up here anyway. This is mainly a build for aesthetic purposes. It's here to look good, but not necessarily provide any function. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, because there are two different considerations whenever it comes to building anything in Minecraft. One is it going to look good? And the other is it going to have any actual function to it? Now, personally, I'm a builder first and foremost. I personally think that things should look good, but then I'm kind of getting more into the functionality side of things recently. Like I'm quite into building redstone farms and stuff like that, and we will definitely be doing more later on in this series. We'll be doing more stuff like that, so do not worry, folks who are here to maybe look at like redstone builds, like automatic farms and stuff like that. We are going to get into that stuff in future. But as for this windmill, it's not really going to have any kind of purpose. It's just going to be here to look pretty up here on the hilltop and give a little bit more context to this area. And now you're probably seeing why I didn't throw away any of the dirt that I picked up in the last episode, because I used to throw away dirt all the time, but these days I'm more into terraforming the landscape. I like to kind of customize the landscape of my worlds, and yeah, it's really useful to have all of this dirt to fill in gaps like this. This hillside was all over the place. There really wasn't a great deal of like solid area to it at all. So this is really helping to provide a little bit more of that, and we can fill in these sections. They'll all turn into grass, and it's going to look lovely once we're done. I'm actually going to put the leaves into this shulker box where I kept some of the dirt, because we won't need to worry too much about those for the time being. We'll add the oak wood in here, and that's a decent, healthy supply of oak wood. I'm probably not going to use the birch wood at any point in this build, but we will add it in there anyway, and I think that's good. So the saplings can go in there. I managed to get a full stack of saplings just from collecting all of those leaves. Wow, that's a whole lot. Right. Now we're going to start off with the structure of the build. We'll probably duck back into the house when nighttime comes, because this area is completely unlit and I don't want to have to contend with any hostile mobs, but we can at least make a start out here and plot out the foundation of this build. Now, as I mentioned previously, this is going to be my one chunk windmill design, which you can find in a tutorial elsewhere on my channel. So if you want a step-by-step guide for how to build that, then that's going to be the best place to go for that. I'm probably not going to cover it like in such great detail in this video. We're just going to build it and chat while we do. But if you want to check out that video, you'll be able to find a really straightforward guide on how to build this place. There we go, night is on the way, time to get inside before the mobs come out. And we might have to adjust the little bit of the landscape as we go, but this isn't looking too bad so far. Let's pop another diagonal in over here like that. And then this one should link up perfectly with that. Brilliant. Okay, so that's the foundation of our build. It's a diamond kind of shape made out of cobblestone. It's really not that difficult to build. We can just make a couple of archways around the sides of here like so, and we're going to swap out some of this cobblestone for andesite to make it look a little bit more natural, because cobblestone, I find if you build with large areas of it, it tends to look very overwhelming. It's quite a busy texture compared to smooth stone, so I tend to find that building with a lot of cobblestone, it needs to be broken up with the texture of a different block. And let's talk a little bit about building for form over function. So right now I'm building for the aesthetics, I'm building for the look, like I said, and when it comes to functional builds, I tend to find it's better off to build the interior of something first. What I mean by that is if you're building, say, like a redstone farm, if you're building a sugarcane farm or something like that, it's not a great idea to start with the outside, because no matter how good the outside looks, if it's not built to house whatever goes inside, like if you find that you don't have enough space there, then you're going to have to rebuild the entire thing. So I tend to find that when I'm building something like a redstone farm, I tend to start off with the interior structure of it, start off with the actual inner workings of the thing before I work out what kind of thing I'm going to build around it. Meanwhile, for builds like this windmill, I already know what it's going to look like, and I don't intend it to have anything on the inside, so it's nice and simple to just build it straight from the ground up, whatever size I like, really, and not have to worry too much about the interior stuff. And you can make an interior match basically whatever size building you have. Like I've seen some very detailed buildings that have some really, really small interiors, and for the most part, they all look amazing, especially when it comes to interiors that you're not going to go in all that often. You don't need to stress over that kind of stuff. Now, here's a couple of easy pieces of advice for building. Number one, bring ladders, because especially if you're building anything with any kind of height, you'll find yourself needing to come up and down for materials, or if you want to take a break, or if you need to go and sleep or whatever. And ladders being on the inside, even if you don't plan to keep them there permanently, they're a really great way of getting up to whatever layer of the building you are working on. Also, bring a crafting table and your shulker boxes of materials up with you, and you'll find yourself never needing to go back down and get anything. Also, if you're working in a space that you're not very close to your bed, bring a bed with you. It will save you time going back and forward between the build and your spawn point. It will certainly help out a great deal when it comes to skipping through the night and taking care of mobs. And of course, if you die during the build, if you fall off it for any reason, you just need to step out of the bed, walk outside to where you died, and you'll get all your stuff back instantly. Already, this is starting to look pretty cool up here on the hilltop. It's going to look even better once we're done with the sails. I think that we're going to put the sails on this side. We're going to consider this the front of the build, and I keep hearing spiders and skeletons, but I think those are mostly in the cave below us, with the exception of this guy who's hiding under the trees. Oh yes, we got him, fantastic. Let's go grab the bone meal, actually. I might need that for later. Another building tip that is probably a little bit obvious, but bring some temporary materials with you. Whether it's dirt or netherrack, you will need it for pillaring up from ground level or something like that at some point, because there's not always going to be a place where a ladder will do. Sometimes, in the case of this build especially, like the walls slope inwards, so sections of ladder don't really work out all that well, so it's usually a good idea to bring some kind of pillaring material, something that is easily removed and something that stands out compared to the rest of the build. Like, unless you're building with dirt or building with netherrack, you're probably not going to be using those blocks for anything, really, so it's usually best to use those, because they stand out, they look kind of ugly, so you know when to remove them later, and they are removed very easily with a pickaxe or a shovel. Netherrack especially just gets eaten up by an efficiency pickaxe, and dirt gets very, very quickly removed with a shovel. Now, I don't have any sand to turn into glass right now, I don't think, so I might actually have to go out on a quick expedition to find myself a spot to grab some sand from. The swamp will probably do, but we'll need to get that smelting in a furnace nearby so that I can turn that into glass panes for the rest of this build. There is a little bit of sand here under the surface, so we may as well grab some of this. It's not going to need much, because all of the glass panes... Oh, we're immediately discovering caves and stuff down here. Interesting. Yeah, so sand being affected by gravity will occasionally just drop off from the bottom of these swamps here into caves. Nothing to worry about, though. Looks like that cave is relatively undiscovered, but doesn't seem to contain anything super exciting at surface level. Let's stick to the plan here. Just grab a little bit more sand. Let's get about a stack. I doubt we will need more than that. And this efficiency shovel is... This efficiency shovel is absolutely eating up sand now, so that's a great thing. I haven't exactly been counting out my materials to get an exact number, so I don't need to worry too much about how much cobblestone I'm using if I make another furnace here. We've got plenty of coal in the inventory that we can use to smelt up this stack of glass, and there we go. We shall have glass on the premises. Fantastic. That's going to fill in these window frames around the edges of the build here. Looking at it now, I've actually built this a little bit too short, so let me grab the rest of these stairs from outside of here and raised it all up by one block, and we're going to add the stairs back in at the top here. And luckily, by the time we've done all of this, I think some of the glass in that furnace should have finished smelting. Fantastic. We have 25 glass. That should be enough. Let's grab 32 glass panes and leave the rest as solid blocks. In fact, I think I'll probably put the leftovers in here because we shouldn't need more than that right now. And when it comes to builds like this, you will find that some people tend to flatten out the entire landscape around a build. They tend to like to build from a completely flat terrain. My advice would be to try and avoid that if you possibly can, because flattening things really takes out the character from them. And personally, I think it's a lot more fun to build stuff with stuff like terrain in mind. So like I said, this windmill is going to be built up here on a hilltop because it's an area where it's going to catch the breeze, where the sails are actually going to be able to be blown around by the wind because there's nothing in the way, whereas down in the valley like that, it might be a little bit more sheltered, so you'll have less wind to blow around. Again, obviously, none of these are practical concerns for the game itself, but just little lore things that actually help you with your imagination and building stuff along the way. If you're anything like me, you will find that you spend most of your time when you're building crouched on the edge of something, trying not to fall off of it. One thing I recommend doing is actually stepping away from the build, maybe 20 or 30 blocks, and taking a look at it from a distance, just to make sure that it looks good in the space. See if it looks good from a distance. See if there's anything weird around one of the sides, like a detail that you missed, something that you put out of alignment, or maybe you think the front of the building looks absolutely great, but when you look at it from the side, you notice something that you would change. You notice details like that really, really easily if you're looking at it from a little bit further away, whereas if you look at it all close up, then it's difficult to tell when something up there isn't built right. And I think the view from up here is giving us a really great piece of context right now, because look at how little we've built compared to how much landscape there is out there. And obviously, this is Minecraft, the world is virtually infinite, but even as far as the eye can see, from down there, it all looks massive. It looks like a giant house with a giant barn and a giant wheat field, but from up here, it all seems relatively small. Standing up here, I can imagine a medieval town sprawling out over these plains, a walled city containing all sorts of mysterious shops and so forth. We have an agricultural area out here with a farmhouse and a giant wheat field and a windmill and maybe some places for cows and horses to graze, stables of some sort. We could have a castle over there. We could have witches living in the swamp. There are so many different things we can add to this world, and like I said, this is just the beginning. But with projects like this, we have to start small, and I think one of the important things is not to bite off more than you can chew when it comes to these early projects. Stick with something small, stick with something that you know, and stick with materials that you can find easily in the local area. When it comes to building early Minecraft structures, stone, cobblestone, wood types are going to be available basically everywhere, so it's really easy to get hold of this stuff. Whereas if you want to build something modern right off the bat, you're going to have to grind for materials like concrete, or find a mesa where you can get terracotta. There is going to be a lot standing in your way if you're aiming to do stuff like that, especially if you're a beginner. If you're first time in Minecraft, you're planning on building some kind of huge modern empire, good luck, because unless you have a lot of very creative vision and a lot of knowledge of the blocks, maybe if you've been reading up on the wiki or something like that, if you're going to try it, good luck. But I recommend starting with something small and something that you can get the materials from nearby where you started. And building with local materials actually kind of helps the lore of the build. It kind of helps the immersion for the area, because if you imagine the people in your fictional world actually building this stuff, they would naturally want to build with things that they could find nearby. Like it would be fairly natural for an early civilization to knock down nearby trees in order to get the materials to build their houses. So if you've got spruce wood nearby, which we have on that mountaintop over there, and lots of oak and birch wood around, those are logical things to be building with at this stage. And when we've built a barn that looks like this with the cobblestone and the mixture of spruce and oak wood, the house here pretty much the same. That windmill so far does not look particularly out of place. It actually fits in with the material theme of this place quite well. One trap that I fall into when I'm building, and something I'm trying to train myself not to do, is go after these loose blocks that happen occasionally when I have to correct my mistakes. When I break a block and it falls down onto the structure of the build here, I am always tempted to go diving straight after it. I do not like leaving blocks to despawn. I don't like blocks going to waste at all, but I've got 5 minutes to go down and get those. So if I absolutely need to, then I can. And in the meantime, I can get on with the rest of the build up here and do everything I need to do. I'm going to jump down now because it's getting dark and I need to use the bed. Oh, I just managed to catch the edge of it there. And it looks like there are monsters nearby. Okay, let's try moving the the bed around just a little bit. Yes, there we go. We caught a corner where we can sleep. Fantastic. There are witches and stuff outside. That's a concern. They've come from that nearby swamp, I think. But you can always come around and collect the blocks afterwards unless they've despawned, in which case you have to really weigh up whether or not the block is valuable. Like an oak wood stair is something that you can replace very easily. A couple of blocks of dirt, there is dirt literally everywhere all around us. So you have to make a value judgment, I guess. Make a judgment whether or not the block that you're standing by, the block that you feel like diving after, is actually worth saving at all. Because otherwise you'll find yourself ender pearling up to the top level of your structure over and over again, or using that valuable durability on your elytra just to get up to a spot where you were before because you made a mistake and had to replace a couple of blocks. Another advantage to bringing a bed with you is that it acts as a sort of crash pad. If you jump onto beds from a height, you actually take less damage and you bounce a little bit. The same goes for slime blocks. You actually don't take any damage at all if you fall onto a slime block correctly. And hay bales, if you've got them, will also reduce fall damage, quite apart from having feather falling on our boots. So that's actually a really useful set of things to know if you're building at any kind of height like we are right now. One other tip, which I've actually only started using recently, but I found it really, really useful, is torches are great for building with. Not only do they provide a little bit of light, but they also have a little hitbox there which you can start building upwards from if you need to. If you need to just place something kind of semi-permanent on the side of a block, if you don't want to place a full block there in order to build upwards from, place a torch on the side of it and you'll find that you'll be able to build up super easily and your build will stay quite well lit. This is especially useful when you're dealing with stuff like logs, because logs are directionally based blocks. Anytime you place one down, depending on which face of the other block you place it against, it's going to rotate to a different angle. And if you want all of the logs to be facing a certain direction, then you need to build placing them on the ground or on a block that is vertically down from where they are. And so it's kind of helpful to have something underneath here that we can place as a platform for those logs, and it works out really well for this build, I think. And we've really spammed the torches on the inside of here to get the roof done, but now that's all done, I can just pillar up and grab all of the spare torches off the walls. There's no need to keep this entire place lit up the way it currently is. Look at this, that's a lot, but it does mean you don't have to take down as many extra blocks afterwards. It's going to help keep your roofs nice and symmetrical when you build them, so I recommend this method actually. It's turned out pretty well for me so far. Time to bust out the wool for the sails. We are almost done with this build and it's come together pretty well. This has only taken me a total of about an hour to put together. Remember what I said earlier about stepping back and taking a look? Let's have a quick look at this, and I think it's looking pretty great from where I'm standing. Obviously we'll need some more sails on there. I'm not done with the sails quite yet, but yeah, I think that's looking pretty cool so far. I'm really glad that I sort of over prepared in terms of the materials. I have way more wool and wood and stuff than I needed, but that's a really good thing, because running out of either of those during this project would have been a real pain to get more of them. So I think it's a good thing that we over prepared. That's one bit of advice that I feel like people don't give very often, but I think it's definitely a good thing to remember, is make sure you gather way more materials than you actually need before you start a project, because nothing kind of takes the wind out of your sails, as it were. No pun intended. I know we're building a windmill here, but nothing takes the wind out of my sails more than realizing that I need to just stop all of what I'm doing in the middle of a build and go and gather some more resources. It just takes so much time that it's really nice to be able to carry on with what you are building without having to worry too much about all of this extra material gathering. And the final touches for the outside of this build, at least, there we go. 2 stone buttons, which don't serve any purpose other than to look like they're kind of the central supporting rods for those 2 sticks at the front. They're going to give the windmill blades something to hang from. That's looking really great. I like that. I'm still so happy with this design. Like I said, it's one from a tutorial, so you can build the same one yourself if you want to, but stepping back and looking at that from a distance, I think it looks really great on top of the hill. Let's try and get it in a picture with the wheat field over here. Let's walk out into the field and just take a look up at the windmill. Now that is what we want to look at. That's really, really cool. Anyway, one more step down like so. In fact, we could probably use the field of view slider to zoom in a little bit and get all of this wheat in the foreground. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, folks. That's the good stuff. I really like how that came together in this world. It looks superb. Right, let's slide it back out again. So now we've got the exterior of the windmill finished. We can start putting away some of the supplies we used to build it. I don't think we will need any more of the wood and the fences. Actually, we might bring a couple more of the fences. Bear with me. I think I've got an idea for those. The stairs and so forth, and the slabs we will leave in here. The trapdoors likewise, and I think all of this wool can probably go away. There we go. We've still got a decent amount of wool in case we need to use that for anything else. Now let's grab some leaves from out of here, because I always like to dress up a build with leaves. It always looks like the build has been there for a while and has kind of become part of the landscape, or that the owner has started cultivating some bushes outside, so it looks like it's more kind of blended in with the environment. I think that's usually a pretty good idea. In fact, while I'm at it, I might take a quick trip over to the swamp with some shears and grab myself some vines so we can make some more of this stuff, the mossy cobblestone, because that will look really good at the bottom of the windmill, so it looks like some moss or ivy or something has crept up the sides of the mill. Now, I also, while I'm here, kind of want to breed and kill some cows. Have I got any wheat in one of these chests? I have. Perfect. Okay, so let's breed up some of these cows. Oh no, they're all going to crowd me. Oh gosh, they're all going to start flying out of the gates any second now. Come on, folks. Free wheat. Free wheat for anybody who wants to breed. There we go. Now, vines can be found in swamps and jungles, and they are actually kind of functional. They provide sort of a similar function to ladders in that you can climb them if they're growing up the side of something. They will grow organically, so unlike ladders, if you leave them on the side of a building, they will start to grow until they have covered the entire thing. And some people really like having vines around. I personally like to keep them in check as much as possible. If you trim them from the bottom upwards, you will always end up getting them block by block, whereas if you trim them kind of halfway up, the rest of the vine will break. So if you want the maximum amount of vines, make sure you start from the bottom up. But these are great for making mossy brick and mossy cobblestone. You can make one mossy cobblestone with one vine and a cobblestone block. We have a little bit more of that in here that we can combine, so let's maybe make 16 extra, like so. We'll take some of the vines back to the farm and put them in a chest somewhere. And let's dress up the outside of the mill like so. With a few leaves placed as bushes around the outside, this place is going to look fantastic. And yeah, I reckon we will swap out a couple of blocks here and there of this cobblestone for some mossy cobblestone, just to make it look like the grass around here has kind of spread moss up the sides. That's going to look fantastic. It'll look even better behind the leaf blocks, kind of blended in like that. That's going to look really great. And I think I will extend this little kind of grassy section here so that we can have a nice front door around here for the miller. Now, this is where we're going to put in some grass path blocks leading up to the door. I might replace the doorstep here with some andesite, actually. That's going to look a little bit better. It's going to look more like an organized doorstep here anyway, because, yeah, when you have the grass and the grass path like that, the grass tends to look a little bit out of place, but you can't place path underneath door blocks because it's not a solid block. So that will do. I think that's looking pretty good. And what I was going to say was we should place some fences kind of around the outside here, kind of like a little bit more supporting material around here. Like so. Yeah, I think that's going to look good. It's going to give the entrance a little bit more of an informal look. It's going to have a few fences kind of here and there propping up sections of the building as though it's been here for a while. And maybe we can have another little fence here that might be a hitching post for a horse if the miller happens to have a horse. Something like that, you know, just these little details that can give this a little bit of character. We'll grow a couple of bushes around the outside of that. Yeah, that's not looking too bad at all. I really like this so far. I think what we can eventually do is, once the grass has grown here and once I've gathered a little bit more coarse dirt and that kind of stuff, we can have the path come down the hill here, maybe make a staircase out of cobblestone or wood or something like that, and have a formal path from the mill down to the farmhouse down there. But I think this came together really well, guys. I hope you like it. I hope you will be building this in your own worlds if you've been following the tutorial. And if not, I hope you guys have fun deciding what to build in your own base areas. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide as the sun sets behind us. Thank you so much for watching. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on the episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.